Okay guys, this is the last video covering homework 5. This is the final page that has these two proofs on it, and they're both angle proofs, so we are going to go through them real quickly. So, the angle addition, so remember our first step, the point of these proofs is, based on these statements, we are trying to figure out which of these postulates, properties, definitions, which of these things up here justify each statement. So, of these 7 definitions and postulates up here, let's go through and just review what each one means. So remember, the angle addition postulate, that's what allows us to take an angle, like let's say RSV here, and break it into the sum of angle RSU and angle USV equals RSV. Just like with segments, we took part plus part equals whole. That's the same thing angle addition postulate does for angles. So we know what given means. Substitution, we remember what substitution means. If you have an equation, you can replace part of that equation with something that's equal to that part of the equation. Definition of congruence, again, remember that allows us to go between things being congruent to their measures being equal. So congruent to equal, or equal to congruent. Angle addition postulate we just talked about. That's the same thing again. Part plus part equals whole for angles. Transitive property. Remember that's the one where if you have the first equals the second and the second equals the third, then you can go straight from first equals third. And then we have definition of congruence again. So we've got several in here that appear twice. So let's look at each statement and analyze what could be the reason for that statement. So our first statement. So we're given that angle RSU is congruent to angle VST. So angle RSU is congruent to angle VST. So those two little small angles are congruent to each other. That's what's given to us. And we want to prove that RSV is congruent to UST. So angle RSV is congruent to UST, the ones that kind of overlap each other. So let's see if we can do it. So the first statement, which of these up here justifies that statement? Well, for those of you that have been doing this for a while, you might say given, because the first one's always given, it seems like, right? Well, that's pretty true. And the reason why it's given is because it says it right here. It was given to us. That's what allows us to write that statement. Next. So from here, so we know that the first statement was given right down here. Okay. So next. So once we establish that they are congruent to each other, what allows us to say that they're equal to each other? Which of these up here allows you to jump from congruent to equals? Those of you that are saying definition of congruence are correct. Definition of congruence allows us to go from congruent to equals or equals to congruent, as long as that you're talking about these same angles or segments. So RSU is congruent to VST, therefore the measure of angle RSU is equal to the measure of angle VST by the definition of congruence. So let's cross out given and cross out the first definition of congruence. So there we go. There are 2. All right, so the third step. The measure of angle RSU plus the measure of angle USV equals the measure of angle RSV. So when I first saw this, I thought, okay, it might be addition property just because we have RSU. We still have RSU, but we added a USV. But notice this is VST on the right side of the equation. This is not VST, so it can't be addition property. So there's got to be something else that involves adding angles. Which of these things up here involves adding angles up? If you think angle addition postulate, then you are right. The measure of angle RSU plus the measure of angle USV equals the measure of angle RSV, the whole thing. So, continuing onward, so we have angle addition postulate for number 3, angle addition postulate. Then we have another one that kind of looks like that. So we got VST, which is that little one right there, VST, plus USV, which is this middle one, is equal to the measure of UST, which is the sum of them two together. That's part plus part equals whole again. So that's another angle addition postulate. It's another angle addition postulate. So now, what happened here? So 3 and 4 were both angle addition postulate. And then notice what's changed here. So we're starting with this equation. We still have that on the right side. We still are adding the measure of angle USV, but it's switched from the measure of angle VST to the measure of angle RSU. And notice further up, we know that those are equal to each other. So what must we have done to get to step 5? If you're thinking substitution, then you are right. The substitution property. We plugged in, we substituted measure of angle RSU for the measure of angle VST, and it created this equation right here. So that was substitution property for number 5. Substitution. Notice how we often have to look at all of the equations or all of the statements above to correctly identify what happened that created the next statement. Because sometimes you're not just using this previous one, but you're using this one and you're combining it with something previously said. So substitution property for number 5. And then number 6. So what happened here? RSV equals the measure angle UST. So we still have UST right here. We still have UST right here. What property possibly could it be? Well, we've got transitive property left. Could be that. Let's see where that came from. Oh look, RSU plus USV equals UST. And RSU plus USV equals RSV. So therefore those two are equal to each other. Since these two are the same, and both of those are equal to it, then those two are equal to each other by the transitive property. So number 6 would be transitive property. And what final property allows us to jump from equals to congruence? Definition of congruence one more time. And we are finished with that problem. Okay. I'm going to have to make a new video for this one because this is going to be a long one.